we need to talk about glaives. Now, glaives as a whole have seen a lot of traction over the past year, and more recently, it seems like Bungie is really pushing them into the spotlight. We've been getting more glaives, glaive exotic synergy, but while Bungie is encouraging players to experiment with glaives and use them more, they're also making it really difficult to fall in love with glaives as a weapon type. Now let's start with Lightfall. With Lightfall and Season Defiance, we were given not one, not two, but 3 new glaives, each bringing something new to the table. Winterbite was the first heavy glaive, which does increase melee damage compared to other glaives, and it was beautiful at first, until Bungie killed it. It also slowed targets on hit, it shoots a stasis orb, and honestly, that's what was so bugged. It wasn't even the melee damage. It was the fact that that stasis orb somehow shredded everything. But no lie, guys, I love the way that stasis orb literally acts as like an autonomous stasis turret, freezing combatants with those icy bolts. But since its arrival, Winterbite was quite busted. A glitch was discovered soon after, where if multiple people fired stasis orbs directly at a target, it would cause bosses to take ungodly amounts of damage, literally just disappearing. On top of that, just using it as a melee weapon solo was extremely powerful, but fun. Honestly, it was Syntheseps that really buffed the damage, making Winterbite very viable even in in-game content. Now understand, there's risk associated with that. When you're in the nuts of your enemies, by God, I hope you're doing a lot of damage, because the moment they stop, you're dead. Now, to circumnavigate these issues, Bungie disabled Winterbite for the day 1 raid, and then soon after disabled in-game wide. And a week later, they re-enabled Winterbite, claiming that the bug had been fixed, and it turns out that was a lie. The freeze orb was not exactly fixed. But during this process, for some reason, the devs decided to nerf Syntheseps, which blows my mind because it completely kills every glaive build. Bungie also squashed the bug where close to melee could not be carried over to Winterbite damage, which brings us to our second glaive, Vexcalibur. Vexcalibur was a reward for completing this season's exotic mission. This was a secret mission silently dropped and had us venture into the Vex network to communicate with Asher Mir, a researcher who merged with the Vex during Season of Arrivals. Now, Vexcalibur is a void glaive that shoots a spread of projectiles instead of a single shot, and when you block, it also grants you an overshield, making it one of the best glaives for survivability. This glaive is also craftable and comes with multiple catalysts. And then our third and final glaive. This is yet another void glaive called Ecliptic Distaff. This is the seasonal ritual weapon, and essentially, bar for bar, Enigma, but with different roles. Now, one of these roles is replenishing Aegis, which reloads the glaive when blocking incoming damage. Now, it's up for debate which is better, considering Enigma can roll with enhanced traits, but Ecliptic does have some other very good traits, like close to melee, which when used to be able to combine that with Syntheseps, did incredible amounts of melee damage. It also has destabilizing rounds if you're trying to play into Void 3.0. But this brings me to my concerns. Now, I need to preface this conversation before I really get deep into this. I'm not complaining about us receiving new weapons. Obviously, receiving new weapons, fantastic. I love exotic quests. Winterbite surprised all of us. So many people were memeing this glaive, saying it was going to be shite. The lore associated with these glaives is very good. So again, big ups for Bungie on that front. But there are several problems with how they launched these new glaives. Number one, we received way too many glaives at once. The fact that we got 3 different glaives, which have now joined our old exotic glaives in the graveyard of glaives. No one is using glaives now in-game since the Syntheseps nerf. Just saying. And I know Bungie's trying to give us more variety in the glaive department, which is a good thing. Similar to Trace Rivals, there are currently very few glaives in the game compared to other weapons. So more variety, I get that. But 2 exotics with a seasonal ritual weapon all being the same type, that's bold. Almost too bold. One of the biggest complaints I've seen about Vexcalibur is that most people expected a sword, considering Excalibur was a mythical sword. It'd be different if King Arthur actually pulled out a glaive from thy rock. No, it was a sword. And I know some of you are coming in right now going, Cross, but the lore. Okay, well, explain this, lore wizard. How come we didn't get Nezarec's glaive? I mean, out of all the weapons we could have had as a glaive, why not that big thing? That sucker looks mean, thick. I want that one on my back. I want to wield it in battle. That to me would make the most sense. And even though Vexcalibur is cool and offers some survivability, the reception for this glaive, let's just be real, guys, kind of mid and by no means meta. Second, the glaive archetype is still underperforming across the board. For the first time ever, Winterbite was the first glaive that the entire community flocked to because of how powerful it was. Bungie read and saw the comments about Winterbite being a shite weapon, and they said, hell no, let thy glaive be meta. Now, if you told me Winterbite was the first exotic glaive we've seen in the game, I would have believed you. Because honestly, guys, the 3 exotic glaives we received in Witch Queen are so weak, it's laughable. You're literally better off running Salvation's Grip than wasting an exotic slide on the class-specific glaives. Now, we're not asking for Winterbite to be broken like it was, but this was an opportunity for Bungie to stick with the power fantasy of running a glaive as an exotic in the heavy slot. And to do that in-game content would be extremely bold of you. I literally ran Master Nightfalls with Winterbite, and I was still getting stopped in a bubble. So it's not not like a freebie. Running in there and poking bosses to death, it's a double-edged sword. But man, when that damage would pop, it was one of the best selling points for this exotic and made everybody hyped for it. You remember when Mercules asked if Gjallarhorn would receive a nerf since it outperformed other rocket launchers and its usage rate was so high? His response was essentially, Gjallarhorn is special. We have no plans to nerf it as of now. Enjoy using it. Gjallarhorn wasn't brought into line until a year after its release, and it's still one of the best rockets in the game for boosting DPS of other rockets. And then I look across the landscape of all these poor bastards and I ask, what the hell is the point? Winterbite could have literally stayed out of ban just for a little bit, just to make it interesting in in-game content for the next few seasons. But now you got all the folks that said it was gonna be shite jumping for joy saying we were right all along. And you know what? Those bastards were, because Bungie killed glaives. Which brings us to point number 3. As of just a few weeks ago, the only viable damage builds for glaives was Syntheseps. Winter's God for warlocks, nerfed. Worm God Caress, also nerfed. And I remember when Bungie was talking about nerfing these exotics, I thought to myself, okay, you're gonna nerf the multiplier, but can you at least buff the duration? You only have 5 seconds to deal damage to a target after stringing together 5 enemy kills. There's very little flexibility here, which is why Syntheseps was so nice. It was that passive buff, as long as you had enemies around you. And Sigil Seraph being the only time we've really seen glaives in in-game content. Like, I was looking forward to Grandmasters and running an entire glaive setup just for GMs. Mylan actually has a couple videos demonstrating glaive boss damage, and one of them is even a one-phase Inspire of the Watcher. But to actually pull that off, he had to use triple close to melee glaives, tractor cannon, Lumina, and Syntheseps. Lots of stacking damage going on here with hours of attempts. But the point is, it wasn't like this was free. Definitely not possible now since the Syntheseps nerf, which really should have just been a nerf to Winterbite directly by proxy. And this is the unfortunate part. With every introduction of a new glaive into Destiny's sandbox, glaives has gotten worse. Bungie's giving us variety, but if all the options are shite, what is even the point? Now, Bungie may have plans to fix this in the future, and good God, I hope so. Perhaps the Syntheseps change was just a band-aid until they can make more permanent changes. But the introduction of good exotic synergy, only to have it slashed as soon as the player base started adopting that playstyle, to me, guys, is not a good strategy. On top of the fact that we got 3 of the same weapon type in a given season. Now, I've seen something brought up as an argument quite often. Are Titans the melee-based class or not? A lot of people are asking this because they felt like the nerf was justified, considering Syntheseps really only granted Titans the ability to do heavy damage with glaives. Actually, I don't think Titans are the melee-based class. Hell, guys, if anything, Hunters are the best melee-based class. Go play with Liar's Handshake, Rock Arc 3.0. You'll be amazed how much damage you can put out. Every class has something over the other class, and that's what gives you variety in your builds. And for me, Titans were the glaive class. You've got Star class out there, your Kambloomy Fusion Nade build for my Warlocks. You've got Hunters that deal the most DPS in their supers, and then you got Titans, which Bungie has stated is the tanky melee-based class, and glaives that seem to align so perfectly here. Needless to say, guys, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that this playstyle got so heavily nerfed just because of one exotic glaive. I think the first set of exotic glaives we received are still underpowered to the point where I don't even know if it's worth the rework. Right now, things have actually shifted for me. Like, if I really want to rock glaives to their fullest potential, I'm actually going to slot on necrotic grips or even Karnstein armlets, literally pushing me to play Warlock. Thank you, Bungie. And until Winter's Guile or Worm God Caress get a duration buff, or Syntheseps gets its nerfs reversed, there really is no good damage boosting exotic as of now. So Bungie, please don't do this again. Don't give us 3 of the same weapon type in a given season, making them literally the focus of that season. Winterbite and its flashy damage, Vexcalibur and its exotic quest, the Ritual Glaive, which everyone probably already has, and then turn around and simultaneously nerf our best glaive builds just because of one exotic. So guys, that's my thoughts. Just wanted to throw that together. And look, this would apply to anything. It's like getting 3 hand cannons in a row. And then Bungie turns around and nerf all hand cannons within that same season. It's a bold move, guys. And maybe some of you never even use a glaive. And honestly, considering what I got to experience earlier this season, part of me wishes I too never got to experience the power of some of our most lethal glaive builds. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.